Hello and welcome. Today I wanted to do a review on something relatively new to the market, and that is the Ripper dueling blades. Now, for those of you familiar with Ripper blades or who have seen my more recent tutorial or my more recent reviews on some of the Ripper blades, you'll know that Ripper blades sort of started out with the acrylic blades, the highly ornate, somewhat delicate blades that represented the effect or sort of replicated the effect of the dark saber. There has always been a demand, though, for that sort of ornateness in a duel-worthy blade, because the acrylics would either get scratched, they'd break where the plug meets the saber, or the blade itself would crack. So the dueling blades are Ripper's way of trying to fill this gap in the market and trying to give you something that is durable enough to go out and beat the heck out of other people with, but also ornate enough to look really good and impressive at a con. Now, the high end of this market is the unstable dueling blade. Now this is one right here. I'll light this up in a second so you can see what that means. Before I get to that though, let's start with the low end. Okay, in terms of dueling blades, Ripper offers a general dueling blade in regular, clear, or day blade. They call them their pearl blades for the clear ones, and I'll talk about why when I do a review on pearl blades. We'll deal a little bit with it in a minute. The blades are rather competitively priced. They run between $38 and $42, depending on the bells and whistles you get attached to them. The primary difference between them, for the most part, they're just like any other blade. I don't have to go through that too much, but it's just a clear polycarbonate tube with a diffusion film inside with a tip that has a mirror in it. The thing about the Ripper blades is, one, they charge a little bit less for a bullet tip than a lot of other places. Most places charge about $5 for this upgrade. Ripper charges $2, which is the difference between the 38 and the 40, is whether or not you get the bullet tip. The other thing about their blades is they use a slightly different diffusion film in them. Their pearl diffusion film is kind of an opalescent rather than a clear cellophane, and I'll actually be giving you a close-up of that when I look at their pearl blades. The other difference is that in their day blades, whereas most companies use a colored plastic on their day blades, so instead of clear, they'll use a translucent red plastic or whatever, Ripper actually takes the clear day blade, or the clear blade rather, and paints it red with a translucent dye. Okay, you can see on this one, there's still clear bits here on the base where the dye doesn't, or where it's been sanded down a little bit, but the rest of it is this translucent red. They put the dye on the outside. Now for a standard day blade, that doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but when you get into ones like the one I just showed you, there are some effects that really are sort of set off by that. So that's their standard version. On the higher end of the market, they have two different types of unstable blades. The review that I'm going to be doing today is on the original unstable blade. It's offered in clear or in a variety of colors. So here I have a clear, and here I have a red. Right, they offer these either as a standalone blade or as a set with the side blades, and the side blades are offered in either polycarbonate or acrylic. So I'll get back to those in just a second. So first off, let's talk about the difference between the unstable blade and a standard blade. First difference is cost. The unstable blades are a fair bit more expensive, whereas their standard blades are about $40. The unstable blades, the originals like this, are $90 for the blade. Right? Other differences. These are not internally diffused. There is no diffusion film inside the standard unstable blade. What they do have, in addition to the bullet tip not being optional, comes with a bullet tip all the time, so that upgrade is a wash. It's a mirrored bullet tip, same as you would get elsewhere. You can kind of see the mirror back through that. No diffusion film, as I mentioned. What it does have is it has this lightning tooling on it. Now this is all hand done, a lot like the acrylic Ripper blades rather, but the lightning tooling goes all the way up the blade. Okay, if you get the polycarbonate side blades, you have this tooling on the polycarbonate side blades as well. I'll look at the acrylics a little bit later down the road. Additionally, there is some diffusion material inside the blade. Okay, it's not a film. What you end up with is a powder, kind of like a craft glitter in there that reflects or refracts the light. So let me go ahead and fire this up and show you what it looks like, and then we'll talk about the effect.
There has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
so let's talk about what you just saw there. So you notice that when I light this up, it's called the unstable blade because it doesn't have a uniform light diffusion like a standard blade does. Okay, you notice that there was a flare of light towards the mirror tip down here and a flare of light at the emitter, and it sort of tapered out in the middle a little bit, and you ended up with a deeper color and less light. You also may have noticed that the effect of this lightning, up close you can actually see the lightning, but from far away this effect translates to a ragged edge on the blade, because usually it's diffusing or reflecting off the inside of the tube, except where that tooling happens. There it diffuses out of the tooling, out of the little lightning etches. You also noticed that when I brought it up close, you could see that sort of spotty or granular quality to it. That's the craft glitter that's in there. All right, so that's the standard. Like I said, this is clear, this is red, and it is exactly the same creature. Okay, let me actually put this one on though, because there is one difference. So I said that when Ripper makes day blades, they're not using colored plastic. They're using clear plastic and they're dyeing it that color. What that ends up looking like when you're dealing with a day unstable is the lightning is actually a slightly different color than the rest of the blade, because what they did is they dyed the thing and then they etched through the dye. Okay, with the original unstable blades, this difference is less apparent than it is with the pearls. When I show you the pearls later, that lightning will come through as a completely different color from the rest of the blade. But in the unstable regulars, it's just a slightly different hue. All right, so those are the effects of the original. Let me talk about some problems with them. There's only a couple. For one, this tooling right here is a little bit rough to the touch. Now that's nothing for your fingers. It's actually durable enough. I spent a little bit of time dueling with my nephew with these things, and they take a beating, and they don't really get damaged. It doesn't get through the die ever. It will dent it a little bit like it would with any blade, but the nice thing about the unstable blade is the more that you dent it up, the more unstable it actually becomes. So they're durable enough, but the lightning, what will happen is if you drop these things in the mud or in the dirt or it starts to get dirty, with a standard blade you'd be able to just wipe it off. With this, a little bit of dirt will start to collect in the tooling. And that will get to be a problem for you. So it takes a little bit more cleaning to get them cleaned off if you drop it in the mud or it starts to get dirty. Now that's not that big of a deal. The other issue is that that glitter that I talked about inside, let me put the clear back on here and I'll show you what I mean.
There has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
All right. Just screw this down in one spot. Okay, so watch what happens with the glitter when the blade actually contacts something. You saw that movement in there? The glitter in these things is actually free floating. It's not adhered to the inside of the blade. Now on one hand that actually gives a little bit of a fluid effect. On the other hand, though, it does mean that with continued use, the glitter is going to pile up on one end or the other, either down near your LED or up near the tip. It never completely leaves most of the blade. I've actually done quite a bit with this, and this glitter does stay in. But it will get to be a higher concentration at places in the saber as the saber gets used. The other bad part about this is it does rain down into your LED. Now it's easy enough to get out for the most part, but a little bit will always stay there. In certain circles, glitter is referred to as fairy herpes, and the reason is that once you get glitter on something, it will always have glitter on it. So I was a bit apprehensive of this when I first loaded it onto my saber, and I took it off real quick when I saw that glitter come raining down into my LED. It really wasn't that big of a deal, but just something that you should be aware of. So that's definitely a negative on these. Now let me talk about the idea of the kits or the side blades that come with it real quick. I said that these things were available just as the main blade. They don't charge more for color than they do for clear. So really this is get it to, or either get it however you want it. But they also give you the option for an additional 10. You can get one set of side blades. Now these are the polycarbonates. These are dual worthy, same basic construction, mirror tip, tooling, craft glitter inside. The other option for the same price are acrylics. Now these are breakable. They're actually pretty durable, but they could snap. And this is an acrylic square rod that's been twisted and then sort of bruleed to give it the bubbly sort of quality. It's thin. It's put inside of a standard 1-inch plug. Let me show you what those look like on a saber real quick. All right, so I'll put the polycarbonate in one side and the acrylic in the other so that you can see the difference.
There's been an awakening. Have you felt it?
All right, so the side spikes are actually a really neat idea. I kind of like the acrylic ones, but you do have to be a little bit careful of them. The add-on for these, the regular blade costs $90. For $10, you get one set of side spikes. For an additional $25, you get both sets of side spikes. You get the acrylics and the polycarbonate. Now, it seemed a little bit weird to me that they were charging you an additional $15 when they were only charging you an additional $10 for the one set. But if you try to buy the spikes individually on their site, they're $30 to $35. So you're still getting a discount, and I had to kind of look that up to figure it out. The pricing on the side spikes is kind of erratic on their site. If you add them to a pearl blade, it costs you $25. If you add them to a standard blade, it costs you $10. And if you're getting the acrylics, you're getting the same thing either way. If you're getting the polycarbonate, it might be diffused with the pearl. But anyhow, so there's the side spikes. And a brief look at those. Neat effect. In terms of evaluation, are they worth the cost? Well, they are twice, or actually more than twice, what any other blade is. However, as I've mentioned with the acrylics, what you're doing is you're basically buying a saber upgrade. This time you're buying a saber upgrade that you can fight with. And so if you've got that one saber that's really the one that you love, this is something that you can get to add to that saber. Worth the cost? My primary reason that I like the regular unstable blades is because if you take the unstable blades and then you modify them, as I'll show you in another video, you actually end up with a cheaper way to get the side spikes for one, and a cheaper way to get the whole package for a pearl blade. So it's a little bit of a budget, it's a little bit more versatile, it's a neat effect. The glitter, I'll leave that up to you as to whether or not that's a good thing. For me, once I stick the diffusion film in there, it locks the glitter in place, and that's really not that big of a deal. But interesting effect. They look pretty killer when they're turned off. It's kind of a glass sort of look, and especially if you're using a white LED, that's a really interesting thing. But at any rate, that's a look. That's a close-up look of the Ripper blades. They are more expensive, all things told. I think they're a pretty decent product. I don't like them as much as the Pearl, but we'll look at the Pearl in a little bit. If this has been of use to you, then please subscribe and check back.